First thing we're going to do to get started is we're going to give our brew kettle a very good rinse. Once we're done with that, we're also going to give the lid a very good rinse. The next thing we're going to do is prepare our steeping grains. Carefully cut the plastic bag full of grains. The trick here is to take the grain sack and put it over the plastic bag. Dump them this way, but be very careful not to spill any of the precious grain. We want all of that in the sack for steeping. When that is done, we're going to tie the grain sack in a knot. Since beer is 95% water, water quality is very important to brewing. Some village water and well water can leave your beer with off flavors, so until you can get a good filtration system, we suggest using spring water. You will need 6 gallons of spring water for your first brew. To get us started, we're going to take 3 of the 6 gallons of spring water and put them into our brew kettle. Now that we have the 3 gallons of water in our brew kettle, we're going to turn our burner on high. We're going to add the Big Daddy thermometer. Very important that the thermometer is adjusted to be about 1 inch from the bottom. You don't want it right on the bottom. Once the temperature has been risen to 155 degrees, we're going to turn the burner on low. We're going to take the grain sack that we prepared earlier, slowly add it to the water, and then tie it to the handle of the brew kettle. Now we want to adjust the burner temperature as necessary to keep the grain at 155 degrees for the next 30 minutes. Now that our water has reached 155 degrees, we're going to set the timer for 30 minutes. At the 20-minute and the 10-minute mark, we're going to dunk the grain in and out like so. This gets all the sweet water in the grain to move to our wort. As you can see, the color of our wort has changed. The whole time we are maintaining the temperature of 155 degrees. Once our grain has been soaking for 30 minutes, we're going to go ahead and give it one last dunk to get all of that sweet water out of the grain and into the wort. After we do that, we're going to put it on our large strainer and let it drain. And we're going to turn the burner back on to high to get our wort to a boil. After about 5 minutes of draining, you can remove the grain in the strainer. You can discard that. You can put your lid back on your brew kettle. That will help bring it to a boil quicker. Once your wort is boiling, you're going to go ahead and turn off the burner. Now we're going to open our malt extract. Do this as carefully as possible. Even in this video, you can see there was a tab left I should have removed. Once that is open, we're going to take this very thick and sticky substance, almost like molasses, and pour it in. Important to remove the thermometer first. This will take an amount of time. It is very thick, as I said. What you'll do while this is draining is you're going to roll it almost like a toothpaste tube to try to get as much of the malt extract out of the bag as possible. Again, preferably that tab would have been removed. You can see we're coming to the end here. We're going to use our large spoon, which is already in the brew kettle, to try to get every last bit that we can out of the bag. At the end, you'll see a little bit in there. You're never going to get all that out, and it has been packaged with that in mind. So your wort will be just fine. Get all of it that you can out, and then discard the bag. Once you discard the bag, it is important that you very, very thoroughly stir this. You want that to mix in with the wort completely so that you don't get any scorching on the bottom of the pan when you bring it back to a boil. Once that's done, set the spoon out of the brew kettle and turn your burner back on high to bring the wort back to a boil. Once your wort is back to a nice rolling boil, we're going to turn the burner down to a medium-high. We want to keep that consistent rolling boil. We are going to then add our 60-minute hops according to our recipe. Make a small cut and then open with your hands. We're going to dump these in, and using our big spoon, we're going to make sure those are mixed thoroughly into the wort. Be careful, they like to stick to the sides at the top in the beginning. I just kind of make sure I keep them moving to get them kind of mixed into the wort. And as you can see, we're having a nice consistent rolling boil, and that's not going to change. Once that is done, we're going to set our timer for 1 hour, 60 minutes. Over the next 60 minutes, we're going to continually monitor our boil to make sure it's consistent. With about 45 minutes left, we're going to grab our airlock and the rest of the pieces to our speedle fermenter, and we're going to put them into the sanitizer. After about 5 minutes or so, we're going to remove them, and then we're going to put the spigot on the fermenter first. We want to make sure when tightening it that it's facing straight down and in the off position. We're then, from the spigot on the bottling bucket full of sanitizer, going to put between 1/3 to 1/2 gallon of sanitizer into the speedle fermenter. No need to be perfectly exact here, we're just sanitizing. Once we do that, we're going to set our fermenter on the floor. And we're going to grab the top. We're going to tighten it down. Also our cap. And then we're going to tip it, shake it, get the sanitizer to touch every area of this fermenter. Once we're done with that, we're going to remove the cap and the top. Put it all back in the sanitizer. Also run a little bit of the sanitizer through the spigot of the speedle fermenter. And then just dump whatever is left back into the sanitizer solution. We are then going to repeat that entire process another time at the 30-minute mark. Now that your fermenter is sanitized, we're going to take 2 gallons of the 3 gallons of water you have left and put them into our sanitized fermenter. You can put your fermenter aside, and we're going to put just a small cut in our yeast packet so we can open it with our hands. Be careful not to cut all the way through. We're then going to stick that yeast in the sanitizer to make sure that it's clean. And set that aside. From here, at about 20 minutes, we're going to take our sanitized pint glass. We're going to fill it up halfway with our gallon of remaining water. We're then going to very carefully open our sanitized yeast packet. We made a small slit. Now you should be able to rip it open. Add that to the water. Do not stir yet. We're just going to set that aside on our sanitized surface. With 15 minutes left in the boil, you'll add your 15-minute hops if necessary, not with this recipe, and a half of the provided Whirlfloc tablet, only half when you're doing stovetop brewing. Also at 5 minutes in most recipes, you'll add hops, but it's not necessary in this recipe. With just under 5 minutes left, we're going to add 20 pounds of ice into our sink. After we do that, we're going to put water on top of it. Not a lot of water, just enough so the ice is floating about 1 inch off the bottom of the sink. We have our ice bath ready now to cool the wort. When the wort is done, the first thing we're going to do is turn off the burner. Then we're going to very carefully place our brew kettle into the ice bath. Make sure it touches the bottom. Now, using our sanitized spoon, we are going to stir the wort every 3 minutes until we reach 80 degrees. This will take 20 to 25 minutes, but there are plenty of things to do while it's cooling. Now we're going to take our sanitized regular spoon and our pint glass with our yeast in it, and we are going to give that a thorough stir. Set that back aside. And now we're going to take all the parts from the fermenter that were in our sanitizer, and we're going to put them on our sanitized surface now that they're ready for the fermenter once the wort is in the fermenter. You can see there's our top, our airlock, rubber gasket, once the wort is at 80 degrees, we're going to carefully remove the kettle from the ice bath and set it on our sanitized surface. This next part can get a little tricky. We're going to remove the thermometer. We're going to grab our sanitized strainer. It's the second largest one. Now we got to pour the wort through the sanitized strainer into the fermenter. It will go quickly at first, but once the hop chunks and the hop protein break get caught up, as you can see here, we're going to need to slow down and stop. We're going to take our sanitized spoon. A little fell off there. That is no problem. We're going to scrape the bottom of the strainer to get the hops out of the way so that the wort can get through. You're going to have to do this process 3 to 4 times. Once all the wort is out, go ahead and throw that right into your sink. Be sure not to touch the sink with the spoon or the strainer because they are sanitized. It is worth it in the end not to have all of these things in your beer. And after 3 or 4 times of this, you will get all the wort into your fermenter. The last part takes the longest. Now that all of our wort is in the fermenter, we're going to give it a very good stir with our large spoon. This will mix it with the water that was already in there. Next, we're going to grab our yeast with our regular spoon and give that another very good stir. Then we are going to add that to the fermenter. Once that has been added, we're going to top off with our spring water till we get to approximately 5 1/3 gallons on the marks. We have a mark for 5 gallons and a mark for 6 gallons on our fermenter. We suggest you do the same. Now it is very important to get oxygen into the wort, so we got to give it a very, very good stir here. When we are done with that, it's time to put the top on the fermenter. Make sure you screw that on tightly. Next, we're going to take our spray bottle, take the top off. We're going to fill the airlock to the line with sanitizer. Next, we are going to put our top and our rubber gasket on our airlock. Then put the airlock in place. Very important to push firmly on the rubber gasket so it creates a very tight seal. Now, you are done. Let's store your fermenter in a dark, cool place until finished. You won't be able to do this after your first brew. However, this is not my first brew. But this is the point in the day when you
can relax and have a home brew.
Cheers, brother.